I really like over investing in who's your customer avatar, what are they searching for, what kind of content's valuable to them, kind of doing that stuff up front, and then very broadly just working to create it, working to create value for those people, working to capture those people and answer their questions.
Are you a solopreneur looking to 2 times your revenue to fund your lifestyle and give back? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback. Just email me at paul@buildlivegive.com. Our guest today is someone who started playing around with Google search in 2008. He actually launched his own business, and it was around how to build a fraternity in the US. This led him into his own business, which didn't quite go to plan. So he had his tail between his legs, and then all this experience he'd built up on SEO really landed him an amazing job. And he went on to work at both PayPal and Airbnb doing SEO. He started teaching it because he was so good at it, and that turned into a successful digital marketing academy where he teaches the fundamentals with no BS. So why listen to Tommy? So one is he gives you a really honest and insightful story on his transition from a job to solopreneurship. He also talks about the power of keyword research and why you should use it in your own business. And he also talks about how to build a remote team and the number one secret to success. So this is a little longer than normal episodes, but it's 100% worth listening to every second of it. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Tommy Griffith from ClickMinded. Welcome, Tommy Griffith from ClickMinded to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Great to have you on, Tommy.
Paul, what's going on? Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, look, my pleasure. So why don't we kick off with something that your family or friends would know about you that we wouldn't?
This one's interesting. So one time I left a nightclub in Thailand without my shoes or my pants.
So you got to give us a bit more than that.
You need more than that? I can't leave it there. No explanation needed, right?
Wow.
So I was in Thailand for a conference, and there was this. Everyone's like, "Hey, we're going to this kind of like loungy sort of like after place after this conference event," and they said, "You need to wear shoes. It's like a classier sort of place." And I'm thinking like, I'm wearing sandals, flip-flops. It's Thailand. It's super hot. And I'm like, I don't need shoes. There's no way. And we get to the lounge, and sure enough, the guy's like, "Hey man, you need shoes. You can't walk in with sandals." And so I'm like, all right, maybe I'll just go home. And I walk out onto the road, and there's this Thai guy selling shoes and pants.
No, that does not surprise me.
That's an entrepreneur right there. Maybe you call that guy up and get him on your show. You know what I mean? And I'm like, "Hey man, how much for the shoes and pants?" And so I end up buying like a pair of very budget Thai shoes and pants of this guy, changing in the middle of the road, going into this lounge. The bouncer like barely let me in. I was not looking good. It was not looking particularly appealing. But I went to the coat check place, and I like checked in my actual shorts and sandals. Went to the lounge. It was super lame. I wanted to go home. I'm like a old man now. I can't hang with the young kids. And I'd been there for like 10 minutes, and I lost my check-in ticket for my clothes. I couldn't find it. And so I go to the coat check, and they're like, "Sorry, we can't give it to you." And so I walked out of this Thai club without my shorts and sandals and walked home like miserably wearing this Thai guy's like shoes and pants. And I think my clothes are still in a nightclub in Thailand somewhere.
That's great. Well, I've got a friend, so Damien, or Frogger as I call him, if you're listening now, that I think he only buys clothes from that guy. Because every time he comes back, he just wears the worst. I mean, the worst Thai clothes. And I reckon that's his tailor right there.
I met Frogger's tailor, huh? I know the guy. Nice. I got a pair of his pants and shoes in my closet now. Then I guess.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, they're all pretty one of a kind. So, yeah, that's a great story. Great story. So, speaking of stories, I know you've had, an absolute wonderful journey through this. Working at some of the best companies in the world through to starting an amazing company yourself. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about, what you did at PayPal, Airbnb, etc., and then, we'll get then into, and I suppose more importantly, what made you leave such an amazing brands and amazing jobs that you were in?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a big nerd. I'm an online marketing dork. I've been doing digital marketing for about 10 years. And my story kind of started back in 2008 with the 4-Hour Work Week. Did you ever read that book?
I just definitely did.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people have kind of in our space, or a lot of sort of internet business focused entrepreneurs. But for anyone that hasn't, 4-Hour Work Week, it was written in like 2008 or 2009, and or maybe a little earlier. But the principles in it are maybe a little dated now, but the general idea I think is still really strong. Where this was one of the catalysts for creating a remote business, right? The basic idea. And by the way, 4-Hour Work Week was probably the most misleading title of all time, right? Like
yeah. And if you listen to Tim Ferriss does an episode on it, and it's a classic. Like, it's just all about split testing. It had nothing to do with the book. Mm-hmm. It was just about all driving traffic. So continue.
And he openly has said, like, no, I work 80 hours a week. I mean, like, it's the biggest open secret ever. But yeah, the basic premise was like, hey, look, you can run a remote business, and you can have a remote team, and you can travel while you work, and you can earn in one currency and pay salaries in another currency and spend day to day in another currency, kind of stuff. And so this was just sort of like the hole in the matrix that all of us were looking for back in 2008, and I was very inspired by it. I studied finance in school, was graduated at the height of the recession, and the banks were crashing. There were no jobs. And so I was reading this book in a hammock in my parents' home in New Hampshire, about an hour from Boston in the US. And the book kind of recommends, one of the recommendations he has is to create an info product. His argument at the time, I don't know how true this is now, but his argument at the time was like, look, if you create a physical product, it's actually pretty easy to copy. And eventually, if you're successful, it'll get copied. But if you have a particular skill, if you have a particular knowledge set, and you can turn it into like an informational product, you should. And I had this very weird, obnoxious story as a university student. I don't know how popular these are in Australia. I doubt they are, but we have these things called fraternities and sororities. I don't know how familiar you are with them.
Who hasn't watched the movie?
Right, exactly.
That, right? Yeah,
exactly. Obnoxious Hollywood movies that cover this stuff. Yes. So, they're drinking clubs in universities. They're really stupid, and I was, of course, part of one. And so I created a fraternity with a bunch of friends of mine. It kind of started as a joke. And then by the time we graduated university, there was like 100 guys in it, right? And so I'm sitting in this hammock reading this book thinking, like, what skills do I have? I was like 22 years old, absolutely no skills. But I use the Google AdWords keyword planner, which tells you how frequently things are searched in Google. And it turns out 1,500 people a month were searching for how to start a fraternity. So I ended up writing this very dorky 60-page ebook on how to start a fraternity for yourself. And I was like, okay, how do I get this to the top of Google, right? Like, how do I do this? And that was the beginning of my 10-year journey into SEO. I started, I got it ranking on Google. I started selling the book for $10. Nobody bought it. I dropped the price to $5. Nobody bought it. And then I increased the price to $47. And 250 people ended up buying it. And so that was my like opening into internet marketing. That sent me down this windy road of everything. And then 10 years later, I've been doing SEO for 10 years and managed search engine optimization at PayPal and Airbnb. And then now I run my own business, kind of teaching people how to do it.
Great. And when you were interviewed by Airbnb, PayPal, etc., how much did that practical experience play into you getting those roles?
It was everything. So, I mean, actually the big jump from that dorky ebook was I went to go start a business with a friend of mine that failed miserably. We went into the medical tourism space. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this at all or heard of it at all. But the basic idea is like, there's a number of surgeries that are incredibly expensive in the West and specifically in the US. And they're for a fraction of the price overseas. And a friend of mine and I, being newly interested in internet marketing, basically said, okay, what if we could create a site that's like ranking really well for all these keywords and, do something with it, like help people get to hospitals and things like this. And it was just such a bad idea. Like it was just so dumb. And I was one of these guys. I was very blessed. I graduated university with no debt, which is very rare in the US. And I ended up putting myself into debt trying this new business. I borrowed a bunch of money from family and friends and basically lit it all on fire. It was so dumb. Did everything wrong. Came home after a year of working on it with my tail between my legs. Just like, hey mom, hey dad, like, is there room on the couch? Can I come home? But it ended up being right place, right time with PayPal. PayPal was hiring an SEO manager for emerging markets, someone who's interested in search engine optimization and kind of non-English languages. And I had just been living in Asia for 2 years. And it was weird. I was like working on my own very dumb startup idea and burning all my money. And then a month later, I was probably 24 years old and managing SEO at one of the biggest sites in the world. So it was kind of nuts.
Brilliant. And what I'll ask you about the change in a moment to then leave those. But for PayPal and Airbnb, just give us a bit of an insight as to what SEO looks like at that level versus what it looks like for us mere mortals running our own business.
Yeah. So I think the big thing about enterprise SEO is that it's incredibly boring. It's way less sexy than whatever you're thinking right now. And it's a lot of the big company stuff. And I'm not sure how in the weeds you want to get on this, but the basic idea is like you spend a lot of your time explaining to executives why you shouldn't remove all of your pages from Google's index, right? Like, I think the funniest way to explain enterprise SEO is Google has an SEO team. And if you it's kind of like a record stop, mic drop moment. They're like, what? Why would Google need an SEO team? But it's the nature of lots of product managers and engineers and designers with lots of different goals and directions and ambitions stepping on each other's toes kind of stuff, right? And so enterprise SEO is kind of the act of someone who's making sure people aren't like, letting traffic fall off a cliff. I mean, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Like the designers have a very specific goal of designing a beautiful user interface. And sometimes that means removing all the text from the page, which would significantly drop your traffic, right? Or, the site reliability engineers. These are the engineers that make sure the site doesn't go down, or if like we get attacked with a bunch of spam or bots or things like that. The only thing they care about is the site staying up. And even if they have to block all of the robot traffic, including Google's robots, they'll do it, right? So like the enterprise SEO is the guy who says, hey guys, SEO is 25% of our business's revenue. We should probably not let it go to zero, right? And like things like that. So it ends up being a lot of communication, a lot of evangelism, and way less of what you'd be doing day to day, kind of like listening to this episode, running your own business, driving revenue from your business. It's a lot more kind of corporate management sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah,
brilliant. Well, that's a great insight. And, I'm assuming, boring doesn't always sound good, but, so you're in those roles. Why then the jump back to your own business, given the fact that you didn't have a whole lot of success the last time around?
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, Paul. That's really great. Should we keep talking about that? How crappy I was the first time? Yeah. So, it was interesting because I failed. I ended up learning the skill, which is like internet marketing, and other companies needed it, and it ended up working out. But I was pretty miserable. I didn't have any debt. I put myself into debt and I really wanted to pay it off. And so ClickMinded, which is my business now, a digital marketing training platform, started while I was working at PayPal. And it was probably like idea number 15. I tried a lot of different things, and this ended up being the one that started working. I started, my boss had asked me to like kind of teach SEO to some of my colleagues in marketing at PayPal, and I put together a class. I got a lot of good feedback on it, and I ended up physically teaching in person. So I like rent a co-working space on Saturdays in San Francisco, and it would be like a 9 to 5 kind of all you can SEO, right? I would like bring in entrepreneurs or startup founders or marketers or whoever, and we would just sort of geek out on their website on a Saturday morning and figure out how to get them more traffic, right? I really enjoyed doing it. I loved it. I love search engine optimization. I love teaching, but the actual business was terrible. It was just like, it didn't scale. The unit economics on it were really bad. It just didn't, it wasn't I did a big revenue share with the co-working spaces, and it just didn't really generate enough cash, but I love doing it. And so I kept doing it. And it ended up being, I was trying to pay down this debt that I had caused for myself, but it all ended up being, it was idea number 15, but it just ended up being like the right place, right time with this kind of online course renaissance that we're in right now. So online learning really started to take off that year around 2012. And I had been teaching this physical in-person offline course. I ended up putting it online, and that was the moment that it blew up. And so I continued to work on it through PayPal, through Airbnb. Within year 3, it eclipsed my salary. So I started generating more than my salary at Airbnb. And then within year 5 or 6, I ended up leaving to go full-time on it. And then now it's been 2 years since then. And I've been full-time on it. But I struggled with it a lot, Paul, around that decision. Because I was in a weird situation. First of all, like I was recently burned, right? Like the wounds were fresh from the old business, and I knew kind of how bad it could get. But on top of that, I liked my job. I wasn't in, I know a lot of people listening, they're kind of they're in a cubicle farm and they don't like their manager, and it's pretty easy to leave when that's the calculation. But I had actually felt very unaccomplished at work. There were things, I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to leave yet. I was dating someone at the time. I just kind of wasn't ready to go. And so I ended up putting it off a lot longer, grew it a lot more before I eventually left.
Brilliant. Well, look, before we get into more about ClickMinded, just the last question is like, who sort of supported you through this journey? Like, did you have mentors? Did you have, a community that you're in? Who sort of supported you as you made that transition?
No one's ever asked me this, and this is such a good question because I actually have two answers to this. The first was, and I'd be very curious your thoughts on this with multiple businesses you've been involved with, but curious as well about anyone that's listening about their situation. I did end up finding a support group. I'm part of like an entrepreneurial group that I absolutely love now. They're a lot of fun, but actually one of the biggest hindrances to me and my story was the sort of initial group of people I had surrounded myself with, and actually how accidentally toxic they were. And I don't mean that in they were like people were out to get me kind of thing, but it's really interesting. People are fascinating creatures. And what I found that was really interesting about my situation, I moved to San Francisco. I didn't have a huge network of friends there. I ended up making a bunch of friends, but one of the initial groups of people I was sort of associating myself with, they were kind of all university friends, and a big group of them, they kind of all went to a nearby university, and like 100-something people that all knew each other moved to the city together. And kind of every night we were out, like there's always dozens of people that had a big history there, had been friends for 5 or 10 years or something like that. And what's absolutely fascinating about a situation like this is when you're with a big support network or family or friends or things like that, of course there's upsides to that. Of course, having that can be great. But what I found is a lot of people, whether intentional or not, they accidentally don't want you to change. And there's all these really interesting things that we do. And it's always dumb stuff. It's always like, oh, new haircut, it looks stupid. Or like, oh, cool shoes, why are you wearing those? Or like, you listen to hip hop, you don't listen to hip hop, stop listening to hip hop. Like we have this weird thing as people where we're like used to seeing patterns. And when we don't see those patterns, we call it out. And so what I found is like when people get to know who you are, when you try and introduce a big change into your life, whether it's, you know, start a new business, like lose weight, gain weight, change music, change who you are, change how you dress, a lot of your support group can accidentally hinder you from changing. And so I think if you're like, one of the biggest things to me I've found with other entrepreneurs is people who are still in the same town that they grew up in. One of the fastest ways you can accelerate change is to get out of there and to go somewhere else and be someone different. So super long-winded answer to your question. Sorry, Paul, but my big support group was actually sort of disconnecting from the kind of default people I was around and actively seeking out people that were also developing remote businesses. And once I found them, I kind of felt like I was home. I felt like I had found my people, and it was really helpful.
Look, that really resonates with me. And, you know, I sort of, and we'll talk about your great blog in a moment, but burning the boat, burning the bridges, you know, my friends could not understand why I was leaving a really successful corporate job to run my own business. And I just had to disconnect from them. So exactly what you said. And to be honest, that's why I've started Build, Live, Give but I didn't really have anywhere to go because there wasn't a cohort of people like me. So I sort of did it on my own for too long. And, you know, long story short, that's why I created Build, Live, Give. And speaking of build, so the next section is the build section. And why don't you just tell us a little bit more of, you know, you walk into a place and someone says, hey, Tommy, you know, click-minded, tell me what that does. How do you answer that?
Yeah. So ClickMinded is a digital marketing training course. We have 7 different courses on online marketing. We help entrepreneurs, in-house marketers, or consultants and agencies learn digital marketing. People use it to train up teams. They use it to figure out other aspects of digital marketing they may not know. Like maybe they're really good at search engine optimization and paid ads, but they're not as great at content marketing or email marketing. And our model is we try and use world-class instructors that do this stuff every day. So our social media course is taught by the former head of social media at Airbnb. The content marketing course is taught by the former content strategist from Lyft. And we kind of try and focus on beginner to intermediate entrepreneurs and marketers that are interested in learning digital marketing all from one place.
Great. And I suppose, you know, that was my question was if you've got these guys that are, you know, been at some of the biggest companies like you have yourself, PayPal, Airbnb, et cetera, you know, how much is what you do at that top end relatable to, you know, someone running $1 million business as an example?
Yeah. So we don't actually focus on the mega enterprise sort of specialists, right? We focus more on people getting the beginner to intermediate understanding. Right. And that sort of trickles down all the way to the smallest sites. So that's definitely our focus. If you are someone who's on the advanced side of SEO and you do SEO every day at a big company, or you're on the advanced side of social media and you're managing social media at Fortune 500 companies, you absolutely should not sign up for our courses. You're too advanced for us. We focus on people that are kind of sick and tired of parsing through blog posts and YouTube videos and having to stay up to date with stuff. One of the things we do is we have free updates for life. So whenever you enroll, it's not an ongoing fee. It's just a one-time thing. And we're constantly pushing updates into those, and we give you a notification when you enroll. So that's kind of our model is like, it's the onus is on us to stay on top of this stuff, and you sort of outsource this to us.
Great. Look, and I've got to say the biggest pain point that I have, I come across all the time with people who are running their own business is marketing, you know, which is probably no surprise. They all want more leads. They're all been burnt by digital marketers in the past. They're confused by digital marketers. It's a really difficult area, and I've got to put my hand up. You know, I was a director of marketing at Coca-Cola, but I still really struggle with this. You know, what are the things that you see all the time where people struggle versus, you know, then become successful?
Yeah. So, and one of the big reasons why we started the business is we got really annoyed with digital marketing media today. And actually, a lot of it came from. Have you ever read this book called "Trust Me, I'm Lying" by Ryan Holiday? Have you ever heard of it?
No. I've read his other stuff, but I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it's one of his first books, and it's absolutely fascinating. And I think actually one of the bigger selling points for this book now is that it was written in 2012, and I actually think that's a huge, like, it's actually even more interesting that it was written so long ago, because this guy called it. This guy called the world we are in now. Like, he basically called this clickbait page view economy that we're in. He called, in so few words, he basically called Brexit and Trump and kind of all this stuff like way before it all happened. And the basic concept was, he was promoting a friend's movie, and he's a self-described media manipulator, and he like basically scammed the media into taking all of his press and media, and then wrote a book about how he did it. And the kind of point is that the media is designed, and so much of the internet is designed to attract eyeballs and get you to click. And it has nothing to do with with reality. And just his kind of point is, the vast majority of the news and information you're reading are written by PR people, which is just gross. I mean, it'll make you, this book, I recommend this book, but it will make you nauseous reading it. It's gross. But yeah, coming back full circle here, part of what we got annoyed by was so much of digital marketing is becoming this. Yet another article on entrepreneur.com on how to massively increase your Twitter followers. Like, it's just not useful. It's not helpful. Digital marketing is a means to an end. It's designed to help you grow your business and increase your impact in the world and whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? But it's become this cesspool of like, reading these articles, feeling like you're getting closer to accomplishing your goal, and then closing the tab, and your life is exactly the same. So we've kind of put our focus on really comprehensive tutorials. They're way more boring. They're way less sexy, but it's just these really detailed step-by-step checklists, cheat sheets, and templates that let you go accomplish your goals and do make your marketing more efficient, more effective, and get on with your life. That's sort of the angle we have. So my answer to that is kind of, if you are struggling with this a lot, I highly recommend focusing on things like detailed tutorials that help you walk through things you want to do, and case studies where people have actual hypotheses of things they've tested, and then what the sort of experiment conclusion was from them. It's like a little bit more math-based, a little bit more dorky, and it's not going to get as many clicks, but it's ultimately generally much more helpful for your business.
Yeah, and look, and it was funny, the world of Coca-Cola, especially for its marketing, was more like a university and more like a science degree than it was marketing, and where the reverse is, when I went out, started my own business, I just thought everyone would use the same level of rigor. And that's where I just got burnt so many times, where people would sell an amazing outcome, not guarantee anything, have no proof that they've done that before. And then, 3 months later, you've burned all this cash. So I really resonate, and I'm sure everyone listening right now will resonate with what you've said. How often does it change? Like those tutorials, because people always talk about the pace of change of digital marketing, etc. You're the guy right in the middle of it. Is it changing as much as everyone thinks, or not? I'd love to get your insight into that.
It is changing, but it changes less than you think, and you have to follow it less than you think. And in fact, I think it's actually very valuable to follow it less than you are now. Yeah, I mean, like there's basic concepts that will take you a really long way. I mean, the foundation of digital marketing that I like to do, I'm very biased. I'm biased towards SEO, even though we teach a lot of different types of digital marketing. But the basic concept I like to focus on is keyword research, which is, I don't know how into the weeds you want to get here, but the basic concept is like, we can use third-party tools to figure out what people are searching for every day. And when you do this, and I really recommend over-investing in this and like in kind of keyword research, because it allows you to set up a strategy for your entire business, both your internet strategy, your digital marketing strategy, but also it could influence your offline strategy, right? You figure out what people, if you have your customer avatar really dialed in, like who you're kind of targeting, you can over-invest in this process, which will cost you little to no money at all. It just takes time. It's a lot of work and it's really annoying. So that's why most people don't do it. But the idea is like, you get the whole universe of what your customers are Googling, and you lay it out, and you find ways to address it. You create content to address it. You solve your users' problems. And when you do that, a lot of the other stuff starts to fall in place. So like, yes, can you get caught up in algorithm changes and Facebook's terms of service and which email marketing service provider is the best for this or that? Yes, you can get caught up in that stuff. But I really like over investing in who's your customer avatar, what are they searching for, what kind of content's valuable to them, kind of doing that stuff up front. And then very broadly, just working to create it, working to create value for those people, working to capture those people and answer their questions. And if you do that, you're really 75% of the way there and don't have to worry about as much other stuff.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So for you, let's just switch gears a little for your business. What's the number one challenge you've got in continuing to grow your business at the moment?
Yeah, so our business is has been a lot of fun because we kind of designed it to solve our own problems. Like we were annoyed with these digital marketing media clowns, and so we created a bunch of stuff to combat that and stuff that we wanted. And we are sort of our own customer avatar, and it makes it really easy. It's kind of like a Silicon Valley trope. It's called dog fooding, right? Eat your own dog food, and solve your own problems because it's just way easier if you're the customer avatar. You wake up every day knowing what the problems are, right? So it's been really easy for us in that sense in terms of like resonating with our users. So we've grown the business, and in the blog post you mentioned, I wrote about. I kind of posted all of our revenue numbers there if listeners want to check it out. And all the revenue is sort of there. The next phase of what we're working on, I don't know yet what direction it's going to go. We're like very dialed into SEO and YouTube and email marketing and webinars, and we kind of know how to do that stuff, and all that's growing. But I'm now looking at like, okay, do we want to go like the enterprise kind of corporate sales side? Do we want to go head to head with universities? And I'm in this phase where, I've been an SEO guy for 10 years, but I'm now doing stuff I haven't done before. And I'm really bad at it. Like, man, enterprise sales is so awful. It sucks. And I'm so bad at it. But everyone tells me I have to do it. And there's so much revenue involved in this and that. And I'm at this moment, I'm not following my own advice where it's hard to get out of bed in the morning with a lot of this stuff. And so it has been for a while. And so we've kind of come to the conclusion over the last few months that we're doing a lot of stuff that like doesn't make sense in the Excel sheet, like it doesn't make sense in the math formulas. And thank God we don't have any investors because they would be pretty mad at us right now. But we're like doing stuff that we're just more excited about, even if there's kind of more leaving money on the table. Because I think a lot of solopreneurs and small businesses that have small teams undervalue this, which is your own personal interest in what you're working on is so critical. You're the engine that's going to drive this thing to the next goalpost. And even if it's a smaller project, if you're personally excited about it, that's a huge advantage. So recently, we've paused a bunch of things that are quote unquote the right thing to do, but it's just not kind of where my heart is. And that's kind of the direction we're taking for now.
Oh, look, I totally get it. So I had a brilliant mentor when I left Coke, and he basically helped set up startup incubators around the world. So had his own successful exit. Really, really brilliant guy. 29 years of age, and don't think he ever had to work again. But I was on the path of I want to create something really big, get investors, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, "Look, let me tell you what that looks like from a lifestyle point of view." So we sort of went through all of the downside of what he sees after working 80, 100 hours a week with all the pressure of investors, blah, blah, blah. He said, "So do you really want that?" And it actually stopped me in my tracks. And I actually thought, I don't want that. Family's number one for me. That's the most important thing. My health is next, just having complications with my health. That's more important to me. And I want to do stuff I love. Otherwise, I might as well just go back to corporate, earn a whole lot of money, and be in a job I don't like. Already done that. Didn't really enjoy that either. So, look, I think, that's such an important point. And that's why, I've named my company Build, Live, Give, because it's, build a great business to fund your lifestyle. So your lifestyle is what's more important than the business. and then give back. So look, I totally agree with you. So that was a brilliant insight. And your team, you talk about your team. I think you've got around 5 team members spread out around the world. Just give us a little bit of an insight, because lots of people are setting up their teams remotely at the moment. A bit of an insight as to what works really well with managing that dispersed team.
Yeah, so we've always been remote. Actually, the business, I mean, of course, the business started with just me physically in person teaching classes and making no money. But yeah, now the team's totally remote. So I'm in Honolulu, Hawaii right now. The rest of the team is mostly in Europe. And yeah, we almost exclusively manage everything through Slack. So Slack, right, the chat function. There's a hub staff we use for kind of hourly logging for the team, and then just any other tools, right? Google Hangouts or Zoom or anything like that to do it all remote. But the nature of the product also is important for this as well, because if you're a productized service and you have clients and customers, and you need to get on calls at certain times, I'll call of at the same time. That can be more of an issue. But with us, we have a digital product that where we're kind of continually doing work, and we don't necessarily have to have meetings, right? We very rarely have any meetings anymore. And so it's cool. Like, you kind of leave messages in Slack when you need to, and you don't have to be up at the same time. So you just work on it when you work on it, and you don't when you don't, and everyone's kind of works as many or as few hours as they want. There's no checking in. There's no anything like that. And we just found nerds. I just work with nerds that love what they do, and it makes it so easy. You find people that love what they're working on. You give them kind of unlimited agency and mobility to do what they want. You let them work any hours they want from anywhere they want. And the other big thing too is I'm learning like how to build a business like this, and kind of going from solopreneur to like having a team. My single greatest magic power so far has been getting out of smart people's way.
Yeah.
And so if you combine all that, like, do what you want to work on, what you want to work on, when you want to work on it, you don't have to be at any meetings, and just let me know how it goes. Surprise, surprise, smart people absolutely love that. And it's ended up working out pretty well for us.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, before we go into the live section, I'd like to tell you about our high-level group mentoring program. It's called BLG Surge. So if you want to 2 times your revenue, pay yourself more money, and work less hours, very similar to the themes that Tommy and I have spoken about so far in this could be for you. So you get to work with like-minded solopreneurs to build, live, and give. Just go to buildlivegive.com/surge to apply today. And there'll also be a link in the show notes. So the next section's the live section, Tommy. So tell us about the daily habits that help you be really successful.
Yeah, interesting. I think the first big one is like the more meta thing is just your environment, and really caring a lot about the city you live in, the neighborhood you live in, and maybe even your home or your home office or your co-working space or office or things like that. Like, if any part of that was off in my life, everything else fell apart, So it's just one sort of meta thing to think about. Like, of course, there's some things you can't change. Maybe because of circumstances, you are stuck somewhere for a little bit, or you do have those situations. I absolutely had that. I was trying to pay out of a debt hole I created for myself, and was living in a shoebox apartment in San Francisco, and I get that. But the more meta things, I don't think those don't have an impact on you. Like, do make sure to care about those. Other effective things around me is just I do wake up early, which has been a great one for me. I love, the big one for me is having a singular focus. So I used to be the guy, I'd grab a notebook or my Evernote app, and I would write down like 10 million things I had to do, from, the grocery store and getting haircuts to like think about the next phase of the business, and like my 5-year plan and my 10-year plan, and also like cut my fingernails, right? Like everything, I would put everything in a to-do list. Yeah. But now I've gotten a lot more mileage out of having like a 2 or 3 thing to-do list. and not letting anything else get in the way of that. Like 1 or 2 or 3 kind of mega things I'm working on, and being so relentless about that, not letting other stuff get in the way of it. And for me, that has been really helpful. It's just like violently ignoring everything else and just focusing on whatever is important. And not just only business, like maybe it's my own personal life or it's health related or whatever it is. But I got a lot of mileage out of that.
Brilliant. Well, look, the next section is the give section. And what's a charity or a community that you're passionate about and why?
Yeah, so we ended up getting involved with, we created kind of a nonprofit offshoot of what we do. So our site's clickminded.com, but we ended up creating clickminded.org, kind of at the height of the Syrian refugee crisis. It was some people thought it was a little strange, but the basic idea was we had heard a lot of Syrian refugees were kind of making it to Europe, but they didn't know what to do next. And so we basically said, okay, if you are a refugee of any kind and you have internet access and you're at all interested in digital marketing, you can take any of our courses for free. And so we've had like 80 something refugees go through the program and try stuff out. We've gotten some messages from people saying they've gotten a job because of it, and they're sending money back to their family and stuff like that. So it's been cool. It was kind of a personally very grossed out by what was happening here in the US and sort of how we were dealing with refugees, and just said like, what can I do? Oh, I have a 30,000 person email list at the time, and I have an online course that people seem to like maybe this can be my little thing. So yeah, it's still open. It's not like something it could probably be optimized and fixed, and we could probably do more with it, but it's just kind of a little thing that we do.
Well, the last section is the action section. So I'll ask you some questions and get some rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
Yeah. So the big one is reduce tabs. If you use Google Chrome and you're one of these people that has like 8,000 tabs open, violently and aggressively get rid of them and only have 2 or 3 open at a time. This is so distracting. The next one would be inbox zero. I don't know if you're familiar with this tactic.
Yes.
But so the basic idea is you can just Google inbox zero and read a couple of blog posts on it. The basic idea is like act on every email you get, right? Either delegate it to someone, pick a time to do it later, or reply back in 2 minutes, or delete it or mark it as spam or something. That's been really helpful for me. And then the third one, and I think the most important one, when nothing's going right, which for me happened a lot, I like to change everything I'm doing. Like when I just stuck, whether it's in business or in life or whatever, I change everything. I wake up at a different time. I move my bed across the room. I take a different route to work. If I'm eating healthy, I'll eat gross and eat candy bars. If I'm eating gross and eating candy bars, I'll start eating healthy. I'll change my clothes. I'll take up a different sport. I'll listen to different music. Like I change everything about my life as much as I can. And I don't know why, but every single time it works. Every single time, like I push through the block, and I don't understand why that works for me, but I just change it all up. It's that classic trope around, I don't know who said it, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and thinking you're going to get different results, right? So I just change everything and I usually break through.
Yeah, look, and I call that the George Costanza effect. If you've watched that episode where he does everything opposite and he's like, Yep. I often quote the George Costanza effect. So what's a piece of tech?
Paul, I might have to steal that one from you. That's a great call.
Go for it. What's a piece of technology that you couldn't run your business without?
So Boomerang and Zapier are the 2 big ones for us. Boomerang is a Gmail plugin that lets you schedule emails. So if I get an email and I don't want to reply right away, like I'll boomerang it back to myself, 2 hours from now, or follow up with people the next week, or if you're writing an email at 3 a.m. and it would be really awkward and creepy to send it right then, you can schedule it for 7 a.m. instead, like that kind of thing. And then Zapier is just a third-party tool that kind of connects all of your apps together. So it lets all of your apps communicate. When someone tweets at us, posts it to Slack. When someone send us a LinkedIn message, like add it to Google Sheets. It kind of like connects. It's kind of the duct tape for many internet businesses now, and we're very critically reliant on it.
Brilliant. And what's the best source of ideas for you to improve you and your business?
Man, so I think the biggest one for me recently has been, are you familiar with Naval Ravikant?
Yes.
Yeah, so the tech kind of venture capitalist he's kind of like a tech Buddha now. He's like a more like philosophical kind of religious guy. But yeah, his Twitter feed is incredible. It's more philosophical. It's more meta. It's not going to be like the 7 hacks to grow your Instagram account or anything like that. But it's very provocative, thought-provoking, and kind of life-changing stuff on Twitter. He's at Naval. And then outside of that as well, it's kind of a more existentialism sort of thing. There's this show called Rick and Morty. Have you ever seen it? Have you ever heard about this?
I've heard about it, but that's as far as I got.
I highly it's a cartoon, but it's incredibly deep with like kind of deep human emotional sort of things around like why we're here and what is this all about. And it's very very thought-provoking as well. So unfortunately I don't have like the digital marketing 101 tips for you. It's more about like meaning of life kind of stuff. But those are my 2 recommendations: Naval Ravikant and the show Rick and Morty.
Brilliant. Well, that and everything else mentioned by Tommy will be definitely in the show notes. So the last question, and it's the big one at the end, is what impact do you want to leave on the world?
Man, I mean, I think the big one I'm most annoyed with right now is how we deal with education, especially in the U.S. There's just highway robbery happening right now with my generation. Kids are being bankrupted by university education, right? We're more than $1 trillion in student loan debt, and there are massive industries designed to extract young people, extract future wealth from young people. Universities no longer do what we were promised they were going to do. They're overpriced. They're not delivering. The vast majority of people could learn a lot of this stuff with enough free time on YouTube, right? The unit economics don't make sense anymore. It's a bad deal. It's a bad trade. And on a more meta level, it's like one generation bankrupting a younger generation. And if we continue to do this, it's not going to work. On a more like micro level, yeah, we teach digital marketing, and we're going up against more than 50 universities in the United States that offer a master's degree in digital marketing. They're a completely useless garbage education for between $50,000 to $100,000 a year, and it's just completely unnecessary. So I think this is wrong. I think it's in many cases fraudulent, and I would love to destroy these guys. I hate to be so grim about it, but I think this is an industry that needs to go away. And for the most part, I mean, there's always exceptions. I think pediatricians and rocket scientists should probably still be going to school. Yes. But I think there's a lot of, frankly, BS degrees out there that are preying on vulnerable young people. And so the impact I want to leave on the world is I want to change the system. I think there's generational debt that's happening to young people today, and I want to work on fixing it.
Yeah, look, that's so inspiring. It's been so great having you on the show today, Tommy. You can find out more about all of those brilliant digital courses. I know I'm going to go sign up and do them. You know, I love the fact that he talks about real core fundamentals, tutorials, miss all the noise, go and get the most up to date. So you can go to clickminder.com to get those. And also, if you want to read a brilliant blog, it was thoroughly entertaining last night. I was reading it. Is same thing, clickminder.com/burning the boats. It's a brilliant foray into Tommy's adventure, and just gives you a little bit more context for this brilliant interview that he's done today. So Tommy, thanks for everything you're doing for the world, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Paul, thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tommy. Bye.
See ya.
I really loved this interview with Tommy. It was fantastic. Like I said, it went a little bit longer than normal, but I loved every second of it. So you can get all the show notes at buildlivegive.com. give.com. And if you'd love to be a guest on the show, just click the email logo on the homepage and send me a note. If you'd like to apply for our group mentoring, BLG Surge, to get 2 times your revenue to fund your lifestyle and also to give back, just go to buildlivegive.com/surge, and all the links will be in the show notes. So please take action to build your business, to fund your lifestyle, and to give back.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.